The next speaker actually moved things around so he could be here today because he didn't want to miss it. So right after his remarks, we've given him the okay to head down to the ceremony. So our next speaker is the mayor of the city of Chicago. And there are a few things I wanted to share with you. Number one, the City Club of Chicago is enormously grateful to him and his wife Amy for both visiting and speaking at Misericordia and attending Special Olympic Chicago events, and encouraging everyone in the spirit of the City Club of Chicago to give back in the same measure which we have received. Number two, the City Club is very thankful to our next speaker for joining us at the Special Olympics Chicago for the Polar Plunge and helping raise, over the handful of years he's been mayor, millions for children and adults with special needs. And number three, our next speaker's frequent attendance at the City Club of Chicago events, like today, and encouraging his commissioners to speak is deeply appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Mayor.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you. And thank you for hosting my commissioners and for opportunities to address the city of Chicago about their record, as well as a sense of where they are going on opportunities. I would note, as Jay say, to anyone in the room that says, your name is on this, but I got other things I got to get to, he meant to say hello to each of you and recognize you for your accomplishments. It does remind me of, I used to tell my mother, you know, you love Ezekiel, my older brother, more than you love me. She goes, no, I hate you all equally. Which explains everything you need to know about an Emmanuel's son after that. You know, I want to, I've been here before to introduce Cheryl and talk about our efforts to reinvent the city colleges, and not just to reinvent the city colleges, but to make them relevant both to the students and to the city of Chicago's educational and economic aspirations. 5 years ago, the city colleges in Chicago had a graduation rate of 7%, one of the worst in the United States. 5 years ago, city colleges on a student or graduate's resume would not open the door to a job opportunity. And today, north of 85% of all jobs require a minimum of 2 years post-high school education. Now, we can list all the accomplishments which we are going to do, but at the end of the day, the net result was, if you put Harold Washington or Malcolm X on your resume, it should open up that door of opportunity in HR. Should be an opportunity to have a callback for an interview rather than have the door shut in your face, or it says, we'll call you when there's an opening. The truth is, you know, I'm standing here and a lot of you are in this room because we had two things in common: the love of our parents and a good education. In the end of the day, when I graduated from Northwestern, what did it have? Its reputation associated that somehow that degree had value. We owed the people of the city of Chicago, the adults and the students who go there, that same sense that if you graduate, Malcolm X, Olive Harvey, Harold Washington, Wright, Truman had some value. They staked their future on it. And with a 7% graduation rate, and also a view, let's be honest, that the education there was the equivalent of a continuity of your high school years rather than a preparation for both good jobs and careers, we were not actually living up to our commitment. Now, in the last 5 years, in the reinvention, a lot of things have happened to measure, from the campuses to the curriculum to the commencements. There has been a total transformation to the point that the World Bank 2 years ago when they issued a report called the Chicago College to Career Program at the city colleges the best in the United States, from a 7% former graduation rate. Everything academically, curriculum-wise, is pointing in the right direction. It is not an accident that Aerotram, building the largest air cargo facility at a gateway airport, came to the city of Chicago because Olive Harvey is a school on transportation, distribution, logistics, and when there's a shortage of truck drivers, they know they got a continuity there. It's not an accident that Whole Foods is building their distribution center. That facility used to be in Indiana, just a mile from Olive Harvey. Or that Whole Foods is building their first grocery store in a food desert across the street from Kennedy King, which is a school on hospitality and culinary. The city colleges are relevant to the students today and relevant to the economy of the city of Chicago. More kids and students go to our city colleges than all 15 universities of higher education in the city of Chicago. That's how big it is. Second largest in the United States. Under Cheryl's leadership, there's a new Malcolm X, soon to be new Olive Harvey, and we just announced the plans for a new Richard J. Daley campus for advanced manufacturing. Under Cheryl's leadership, each school now has a focus on the industries of the most promising jobs and careers that will lift people to a middle-class income and an opportunity not just at a job, but a career. We have the most diversified economy in the United States of any big city, and finally, each of the schools are focused on providing the students a link to those careers and jobs. And then third, which I am very excited about, cities across the country are focused on K through 12. In the city of Chicago, we're focused on pre-K to college with the Chicago Star Scholarship. The only city in the United States, if you earn a B average, community college in the city of Chicago is free, open to all students. And we just did the second year at the community college for the incoming class. And you heard both from students and parents of what this meant. I do not believe, Cheryl does not believe, Chuck Middleton, the chair of the board, does not believe, that if you are trying to provide your kids an education, it should not be determined on whether you can pay, it be determined whether your kids are ready to work hard to earn it. You get a B average in the city of Chicago. Community college is free, meaning that the next 2 years of your education, high school is not the destination. It's a milestone on the road to further education. And parents should not have to take a second job or a second mortgage to give their kids a chance at the American dream. Not in Chicago. And this will transform the city. And the good news is every institution of higher learning in the city of Chicago, DePaul, Loyola, Roosevelt, Northwestern, University of Chicago, has a partnership now with the City of Chicago Community Colleges. If you maintain that B average, they will accept you testing in and give you a discount on the curriculum. The biggest financial burden today families face is how to provide for their kids' education. And the city of Chicago, not perfect, but at least has a way to help families provide for their kids, because we live in a period of time where you earn what you learn. And we have to go past high school. And we finally have an answer to that problem. So from our campuses to our curriculum to our commencement, the city of colleges of Chicago are relevant today in a way they were not just 5 years ago. And in addition, today we announced that Arizona State University is accepting graduates from the city colleges to their online education, complementing all other 15 institutions in the city of Chicago. And that is a landmark transformation before the eyes of the city of Chicago, and because of Cheryl's leadership. If you have on your resume any name of the institutions of the city college, from Harold Washington to Wright to Truman to Olive Harvey to Kennedy King to Richard J. Daley or Malcolm X, it now means you have the opportunity to walk in, get a job, and get a career, because the businesses around the area are part of drafting that curriculum. And that means that while we should be proud of being the home of University of Chicago, Northwestern, DePaul, Loyola, Roosevelt, Northeastern, and we're proud that more and more students from the Big Ten states call Chicago home when they graduate, we should also be proud that we have a community college system that is relevant to the future of this city, relevant to the future in businesses of the city, and most important, is relevant to the people who rely on it to have a better tomorrow. And the person that has led that effort for us as a city is the next speaker, my friend Cheryl Hyman.
Thank you. And I'm extremely humbled by the mayor's words, particularly because he's my boss. I think the mayor and I are bound, and I think everybody knows this, that we are bound by the same passion for the city and tenacity when it comes to empowering City College's students. He has been a great champion of our students. He has been a great champion for me and a good personal friend to me, and for that, I will always be grateful to him. I want to thank you, Jay, I want to thank you, Paul, and I want to thank all of you who have supported City Colleges and me over the last 6 years. I want to particularly thank my parents who are literally responsible for me being here today. As a corporate executive turned education leader, I want to extend a special thanks to the civic and business communities that are so committed to making our city stronger. That, of course, includes my corporate mentors, Frank Clark, John Hooker, and John Rowe, who probably assumed when I stopped working for them and became chancellor, all their headaches would go away, but that didn't turn out to be so. I've been very fortunate to have them and all of you as partners. I am humbled by the knowledge that while much remains to be accomplished, we have been able to dramatically boost student success at City Colleges, which was my mission I gave myself when I arrived 6 years ago. I said then, and I quote, "There are thousands of young people who could be inspired by my story. Their success hinges on my ability to do this job well. The challenge," I said, "was to build a world-class institution at a time of national recession that still puts students in a better position in life than when they came through the doors." 6 years later, the record shows thousands of students are in a better position in life thanks to reinvention. But in a year where City Colleges has been cut $45 million because of the state budget crisis, it feels very quaint that I was worried about the recession back in 2010. Having been appointed chancellor by 2 Democratic mayors and appointed to the Illinois Community College Board by a Republican governor, I hope I have shown that education reform can be an area of common ground. My boss is gone. Heck, I seem to be the only thing the governor and the mayor can agree on. He left. Now, it was very flattering to be asked to lead the institution that gave me my start in life. But the real reason I accepted the mission was because this was an opportunity to help give students the same chance to succeed that I had. And in the process of changing careers, I found my calling. Many students see me as a beacon of hope because I once was them. My own journey is unique to me, yet it is so commonplace when it comes to so many of our students. My journey consisted of just 24 blocks, a 24-block distance that was shortened yet made the destination often feel so out of reach. The 24 blocks from Henry Horner at Lake and Damon to City College's district office at Jackson and Franklin. I walked those 24 blocks in our students' shoes, and that has informed my vision and daily purpose as chancellor. What I learned along those 24 blocks was that you can't let your circumstances dictate your destiny, and that you can't let anything or anyone stand between you and your goals, not even yourself. I struggled as a teenager in a family that had its fair share of challenges. We prevailed, but not before it took a toll on our financial and emotional footing as a family. And I certainly struggled at school. I was not willing to put in the work and make the sacrifices that are demanded of all students, but even more so of students who come from where I come from. I was starting to allow myself to become the victim of my own circumstances. It wasn't until dropping out of high school and even becoming homeless and aimless for a time that I realized I alone held the key to a better future for myself. I realized that education was that key. And so on my 24-block journey, I earned an associate's, a bachelor's, and a master's degree, and eventually an MBA on my way to a good position with a Fortune 500 corporation. All the while, at every one of those 24 crossroads, there were people who looked to stare me down, tried to steer me wrong, and as my grandmother would say, just simply tried to steal my joy. But thankfully, at most of these corners, there were also people who inspired me to forge ahead. My story and the stories of thousands of additional graduates under reinvention have helped pave the way for other students as they come to these same crossroads. But telling stories, however inspiring, is not enough. What truly gives people hope is a relevant academic credential that holds currency with four-year institutions and employers. And so 6 years ago, City Colleges also found itself at a critical crossroad. The institution had a long history of access, but it did not have a strong focus or track record on student success. There had been little strategy and no clearly articulated goals, and so it was impossible to target investments and to hold ourselves accountable either operationally or academically. We knew we had to couple access with success, and the only way to get there was to set explicit targets to drive improved outcomes, and this was a true cultural shift. First, we had to educate everyone where City Colleges stood. As you heard the mayor say, the institution had a 7% graduation rate, which few people either inside or outside the institution knew. It became evident very quickly that a leading reason for our low graduation rate was that we did not have clear and relevant paths to graduation for students and that we had too few support systems to get them there. It was also clear that we were not living up to our obligation to taxpayers to manage their dollars responsibly. And so, if we were going to put in place the kind of academic systems that would drive student success, we had to free up money tied up in operational inefficiencies. Because there was a dire need for operational improvements, and because City Colleges clearly was in need of fresh ideas and new approaches, it was critical to establish true diversity in our administration. Diversity is usually defined in terms of race, ethnicity, or gender. But rarely are diversity of thought and experience included. As Nicholas Kristof wrote in New York Times about higher education a few weeks ago, we're fine with people who don't look like us, as long as they think like us. When perspectives are unrepresented in discussions, when some kinds of thinkers aren't at the table, classroom becomes echo chambers rather than sounding boards, and we all lose. Reform-minded institutions need leadership teams with backgrounds in change management who are willing and able to make unpopular decisions when necessary. These administrators need to include both those with education experience as well as those with business or other professional backgrounds in results-driven organizations. We have to stop being afraid of the so-called corporate takeover of education and embrace business insights that can help us bring relevance to our programs and help us run our institutions more effectively. So we put in place a leadership team that was a partnership of academic experts and others who, like me, come from industry. Now, this was met with pushback, which is ironic to me, because higher education trains people to run things, but often doesn't want their help running higher education. Our team developed a 5-year plan with measurable annual goals in key academic and operational areas, and we release annual scorecards to track our progress. That is the kind of transparency that is common practice outside of government, but it has created controversy within higher education because it requires such a shift in mindset and culture. Now, I was committed to reinvention being a collaborative effort. We set up task forces of faculty, staff, students, and community and business stakeholders to document what they thought were the biggest issues and make recommendations for solutions. In all, 20% of full-time faculty members served, and task forces have accounted for 210,000 people hours since the beginning of reinvention. We had to be careful, however, that the process did not become the product. As with any reform, there is a time to reflect and listen, and there is a time to act. We put in place centers for tutoring, career placement, transfer, veterans, and wellness. We created relevant semester-by-semester academic pathways that are tied to a career goal, whether that goal requires a few months or many years of education. Today, 100% of City College's credit students are on such a pathway. We brought our student advisor ratio down from more than 900 to 1, which was twice the national average, to less than 300 to 1, well below the national average. As a result, in the last 3 years, we have awarded more than 14,000 degrees compared to 6,000 degrees in the 3 years preceding reinvention. The number of degrees awarded annually to both full-time and part-time students went from about 2,000 before reinvention to nearly 5,000 today. And certificates are up by more than a fifth to almost 7,000. Both numbers are the highest on record at City Colleges. In addition, our federally defined graduation rate for first-time, full-time students who graduate within 3 years also has more than doubled, from 7% to 17%, again, the highest on record. When we had a 7% graduation rate, urgency was a must. But even now that the rate is at 17%, urgency is still required. Some people point out that we are still short of the 20% national average graduation rate for community college. Well, I would argue that neither number is a reason to celebrate or rest, because both are unacceptable. Also, the number of GED and English as a second language students who advance to college credit certificate or degree work has increased 171%. When I became chancellor, colleagues in higher education and partners in industry told me what we taught was out of step with what their admission officers and HR teams looked for. Today, we have 200 education and employer partnerships that have helped us ensure the relevance of our credentials, and as a result, the transfer rate to four-year institutions is up 9%, and we have placed more than 3,000 students in paid internships and jobs directly through College to Careers. And thanks to the mayor's vision, as you heard, qualified Chicago public school students can attend City Colleges of Chicago for free under the STAR Scholarship. We expect to have more than 2,000 STAR scholars enrolled this fall. We have successfully negotiated 12 collective bargaining agreements, ushering new group incentives for instructor and faculty unions that include student success pay for faculty members based on performance against student outcomes in our 5-year plan. Now, you may have heard of the 12 labors of Hercules, but I should note he had it easy because none of his included labor negotiations. We achieved all this while the state cut us $75 million overall since fiscal year 2011. We have been able to manage through this crisis, albeit with many sacrifices, because we saved $70 million through increased efficiency, securing a AA and AA- credit rating along the way. And in all, we have cut administrative overhead 30% under reinvention. Also, Last year, anticipating the state budget crisis, we increased our tuition for the first time in more than 5 years, a period over which every other community college in the state had raised tuition or fees each year. Our new tuition structure keeps city colleges by far the most affordable higher education option for Chicagoans. And so while most other Illinois community colleges are laying off faculty and staff in the face of the paralysis in Springfield, city colleges will finish fiscal year 2016 with no layoffs and is about to adopt a fiscal year 2017. Thank you. And is about to adopt a fiscal year 2017 budget without layoffs. Without our reforms, we likely would be in a very different place. Because we have made significant inroads in our outcomes, Chicago has been looked upon as a reform model by other cities and states. This has led to conversations with education and government and business stakeholders across the country, which have convinced me that the challenges and needs we have worked so hard to address at city colleges do not have their roots in Chicago and are not unique to our city. When college and civic leaders pull me aside at national gatherings, they don't ask me about our academic model, our fiscal reforms, or how we partner with industry as much as they ask me this: how do you make the cultural changes that make all the other changes possible? The biggest challenge is shifting higher education to a culture of success and accountability guided by data and outcomes, regardless of pushback and regardless of the cost to us as leaders. When I announced my decision to only renew my contract for a year, the headline said my tenure had been stormy. Now, some people who love me dearly, like my parents, asked, why would they insert such a negative thing in the headline given all your accomplishments? I said, my tenure has been stormy. If it hadn't been, we wouldn't be talking about how city colleges has made such dramatic improvements. You don't change the status quo without some storms. And the more performance and the more accountability you demand, the bigger the storms. You see, after more than 6 years of being an education leader, but retaining the fresh perspective of an outsider, what I've learned above all else is that if higher education is going to more fully live up to its mission and its obligation to taxpayers, it needs to be more in tune with the real world. This idea is at the heart of reinvention, but higher education is still debating the issue. Here, the data is clear and there should be no debate. In 2015, in UCLA's American Freshman Survey, the top reason freshmen listed for going to college was to be able to get a job. Students see college as a ticket to a job because they know you can't pursue life's loftier goals if you can't feed yourself or feed your family. That was a lesson I learned along my 24-block journey, and it's too often overlooked by those who have not experienced the sheer desperation of not having good job options and of not having good life options. So rather than having false debates wrapped in buzzwords and jargon, we should simply measure our success by whether students are entering good careers and how well we're preparing them to do that. The Association of American Colleges and Universities recently asked graduates and employers whether graduates were ready for the workplace in various skills. Here is one result that illustrates the whole survey. 59% of students felt they were good at applying their knowledge and skills in the real world, but only 23% of employers agreed. The lesson is also that even as we support our students, we also have to challenge them to know the facts and pay attention to what the real world wants from them. We hear a lot about the skills gap in America, and it is very real. But there also is an information gap, which must be bridged if we're going to close the skills gap. According to the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce, by 2025, 2/3 of all jobs in the U.S. will require education beyond high school. And the center forecasts a shortfall of 11 million workers with the relevant credentials to fill those roles over the next 10 years. City Colleges of Chicago's College to Careers initiative, which the mayor and I launched in 2011, has been cited as a model of how we can avoid that shortfall. Before College to Career, city colleges did not know which careers or skills were in demand. And even if it had known, our institution was not set up to provide students with those skills. We must, as a country, recalibrate programs and curriculum so graduates can leverage their credentials for employment, and we can't do it without the input from the people who are doing the hiring. In 2015, the Economic Policy Institute estimated that the unemployment rate among young U.S. college graduates was 2 points higher than for the U.S. population as a whole. In addition, nearly 15% of young college graduates were underemployed. I think the disconnect between the job market demand and our education product is the reason. Even when people graduate, many do not graduate with skills that correspond with employers' needs. Our reinvention effort and our College to Careers initiative have begun to help close the skills gap and preparing Chicagoans for the 600,000 jobs coming to our region in high-growth careers. Under College to Careers, each of our 7 colleges has become the center of excellence for a high-growth industry, which has allowed us to pool our talent and resources, but also facilitated the involvement of partners in a much more targeted, impactful way. But wouldn't you know it, increasing outcomes while saving money has caused one of our many storms. Now, in a perfect world, our city would have a Fortune 500 company offering good jobs in every neighborhood. And in a perfect world, our city would have a world-class college or university that offers every possible program in every neighborhood. In a perfect world, city colleges would build 7 new $251 million schools of health sciences like we did at Malcolm X, and 7 $75 million advanced manufacturing centers like we're building at Daly, and 7 $45 million transportation distribution and logistics centers like we're building at Olive Harvey, and 7 $1 million child development academic centers like we're building at Truman. But guess what? We don't live in a perfect world. We live in an imperfect world made up of imperfect people with imperfect funding who are trying to make the world just a little less imperfect. Just like the right job isn't always conveniently located right around the corner, the right academic program to one's goals isn't always either. Sometimes life requires a 24-block journey. On the healthcare front, for instance, we went from 6 largely underachieving, mostly unaccredited nursing programs to one city college's School of Nursing at the new Malcolm X College, where the nursing licensure pass rate has gone from 42% in 2010 to more than 85% today, and where for the very first time, every nursing student at city colleges is now attending a nationally accredited program. Our mission isn't just to provide stellar programs. We have to educate students about their options before we educate them with the skills they need. Far too few people know which jobs are available, know what they can truly expect to earn, know which skills are needed to succeed in those jobs, or know where to get those skills without accumulating a massive amount of debt. As our students make their own 24-block journeys, they look to us for guidance. We owe it to them to give them accurate advice guided by the correct data and not by our own biases. The College to Careers model has been criticized by some because, according to them, and these are quotes, we're putting the high-end pen and paper programs on the north side and the low-end manual jobs on the south side. And yet, according to the US Census Bureau, here are the expected work-life earnings for Americans in some of these very same programs, including the so-called low-end jobs. Natural resources, construction, and maintenance, $2 million. Production, transportation, and material moving, $1.9 million. Education, $1.8 million. Office support, $1.8 million. So here again, it's important to be guided not by our biases, but by facts, and not demean the people who study, teach, and work in fields that are shown to be sources of true economic empowerment. We can't let cynicism get the best of us. Since I was here at the City Club last year, we faced controversy that symbolizes this. Under reinvention, we joined a national reform movement in higher education called Award Credit When Credit is Due, to ensure students who earn degrees actually receive them. Now, I know awarding degrees to students who actually earn them should not prove controversial, but wouldn't you know it, guess what happened? It led us right into another storm. We have awarded what are called retroactive degrees to students who have left city colleges without getting a degree they had earned but not claimed because they did not know they had met the requirements. But what's even more tragic is that for some time, city colleges had not known these students had earned these degrees because before reinvention, city colleges did not regularly perform degree audits. We also have started granting reverse transfer degrees to students who transfer from city colleges just a few credit hours short of graduation. With the student's consent, we apply credits from their four-year institution and award them an associate's degree, which they can leverage for more earnings if they work while pursuing their bachelor's. Now, unrelated to this, we also started, at the request of families, faculty, and college administrators, the practice of awarding honorary posthumous degrees to graduating students who passed away. Now, a local publication wrote that we were artificially inflating our outcomes by using such questionable methods as reverse and retroactive degrees, and went as far as stating we were combing the list of dead students to give them degrees that would further boost our numbers. As we explained to the outlet in vain, we had awarded just 3 such honorary posthumous degrees that did not count toward our graduation rate. These are gestures of respect and compassion towards students and their families. The fabricated controversy, however, did not stop us from doing what's right. This year at graduation, I personally awarded 4 more honorary posthumous degrees to grieving families, but grateful families. And before they write something else, they didn't count towards our graduation rate either. And for the record, retroactive and reverse transfer degrees at city colleges accounted for just 0.3% of our graduation rate. But the fact is, we should award more, not less, of these degrees. While some here still debate the issue, we run the risk of being left behind if we give in to the cynicism. The rest of the country has embraced reverse and retroactive degrees as forward-thinking strategies. Best-in-class community colleges like Miami-Dade in Florida, which has a graduation rate in the 40s, employ these strategies. All 64 state University of New York institutions, including 30 community colleges, do reverse transfer. All of the Michigan community colleges do reverse transfer with the University of Michigan. Colorado public universities and community colleges do reverse transfer statewide. Cynicism may be provocative, but it's dangerous, and it can lead you astray. Reinvention has been about facing reality, facing what employers demand, facing what universities expect, facing our fears of change, facing the challenges of pushing outside of our comfort zone, and facing the reality of our resources. It is because I learned to face my own reality that I was able to make it the full 24 blocks from Henry Horner then to where I am today. The easy choices, the easy path often lead to dead ends. In city colleges, in the city of Chicago, and our country, the path of most resistance is the one that holds the greatest rewards. I will end with this. The most frequent question I've gotten since announcing I decided to only renew my contract for a year is this: Chancellor, what are you going to do next? Because the City Club is so important to me, I wanted to wait until today to make the big announcement. After my tenure is over, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to sleep for 8 hours straight, at least once. I am going to disconnect my phone, and I am going to finally take a vacation. After that, I am going to resume my journey. As I now realize, even after making it through my own treacherous 24-block journey, you never arrive, and it's dangerous to think that you have. I will embark on a new 24-block journey with the same passion and fire in my belly as during the first 24 blocks, to continue the cause of academic and economic empowerment. What shape it takes is for another day. But for now, my passion and my fire will remain concentrated on student success at city colleges. Now, I could not think of better words than those of Senator Ted Kennedy, whose sentiment resonates with me in this moment. For all those whose cares have been our concern, the work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die. Thank you.
Well, kind of a low-tone speech, but it's okay. Thank you, Cheryl. If you have a question, young Amanda's over there, and we'll start the ball rolling. I should announce that got my former president here, Charles Middleton, is now in charge of the board. Now I can speak more freely. You always, when the president's here, you don't want to screw around. I'm a city college. I taught there for 4 years, so a long journey for both of us. In fact, I was there way back when there actually was a strike. Hold your applause. All right, here we go. What you said, it was hold true back then as well. Here we go. Cedric Bodley, Boy Scouts of America, Workforce Development. What outreach or programs do you recommend for middle and high school students to help subject them to the opportunities for education and careers?
So the first program that comes to my mind is dual credit, dual enrollment. One of the things I didn't announce in my speech is City Colleges has went from about 300 dual credit, dual enrollment to over 3,000 students in dual credit, dual enrollment. I think the earlier we can get students exposed to college, particularly those like we've set up in college to careers, the better. So I would really encourage students not to wait until they get to college before they get to college.
Okay. Amanda's waiting. Write the question. Steve Shucker, big print, thank God. How afraid are you that Springfield and the overall political fighting that your boss is a part of, Mayor's gone, right, Dave? Yeah, okay. Part of, will stop the progress you have outlined now and in 5 years?
Well, certainly I can't pretend like it's not a risk. City Colleges has been able to save quite a few dollars through our efficiencies. But I can't lie to you, and I have to tell you, it will be hard to sustain the outcomes that we have now if, in fact, the budget crisis is not resolved. So as I stated, we have been cut quite a bit, and it will be hard to continue to absorb those cuts and maintain the type of results that I just spoke about.
Anyone else?
No.
The moderator has a question.
No.
Easy, Mr. President. Over the years I've taught, I've always assumed, or I didn't assume, I've observed that most universities and community colleges especially teach what the teachers want to teach, not what the students need. Would you comment on that?
Really? Another storm?
What the hell you got, you know?
Exactly. I think my whole speech, a lot of my speech was exactly about the question I just got. It's how do you create the balance between what higher education has been traditionally and what we need higher education to be today, and how do you involve all stakeholders in that? And so I think what you see is a big shift that's happening nationally in order to try to bridge that gap. We talk about bridging the skills gap. The real gap we need to bridge is inside our own walls between our faculty, our administrators, and everyone else who works there. And that's a very delicate balance. But like I said, it's up to us as leaders to be willing to push hard, challenge the status quo, despite what it may cost you.
Good answer. How about a round of applause?